You see that? I'm not sure if I can access Wi-Fi from here.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
we can see it. Or is
Oh,
that,
sorry. Yes,
or is that your or this Kyle?
that's not mine. That's
Okay.
Kyle's. Okay, I'll try and read from the screen.
There is a public Wi-Fi if you want to join that. I don't know what the.
Let me deal with that. Okay, I'll read from the screen. So it's the work session on today, November the 14th, between HLB and GBOS, where we're going to be discussing the Girdwood Industrial Park. I will call the meeting to order at 1:35. Some notices. Girdwood Board of Supervisors, its committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act, as listed in Alaska Statutes 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25, public meetings. We operate under the Girdwood Public Meeting Standards of Conduct. Would someone in the room like to read the land acknowledgement? No, I will do so.
I can.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Michael. Our land acknowledgement. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors acknowledges the Indigenous peoples of Alaska, whose land we reside on. The community of Girdwood, situated between the areas known as Dena'ina and Alutiiq homeland, respects the people who are stewards of this land for generations. We commit to the continued stewardship of this land and are grateful to be a part of a wider community that seeks to maintain a sustainable use of Girdwood Valley for present and future peoples.
Thank you, Christina. Could I ask staff to do roll call, please?
Mike Edgerton.
Here, present.
Jennifer Wingard.
I
think that was you, Jennifer. She disappeared. Kelly.
Here.
Thanks. Jennifer just all of a sudden disappeared. She'll probably be back.
Okay. It sounds like we don't technically have a quorum right now, but we will do as soon as Jennifer returns.
There we go.
Hey, Jennifer, we lost you there for a second.
Yeah, sorry, rookie move. I'm present.
Thanks.
Okay. I think we can confirm a quorum then. So I would ask for approval of the agenda as written.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Kelly. Would you like to second, Jennifer? Thank you. I'll do that by assent. Not hearing any contradiction, we pass that. Okay, so let's dive straight into the agenda. Actually, would anyone from municipal staff, if you could just...
Sure. I'm Emma Givney. I am the Heritage Land Bank Land Management Officer.
Nicole Jones-Vogel, contractor at HLB. I think I saw Tiffany on the, oh yeah.
Tiffany Briggs, I'm the real estate director, and I apologize, I'm gonna have to hop off in like 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you for joining us. So we're here, it's a work session. We won't be making any formal decisions here, but we want to go into more depth than we were able to at the municipal management meeting. We did get an initial presentation. I'm wondering if you could just very, very quickly just recap the initial presentation, and then we can start discussing in a bit more detail. So are you taking this, Nicole?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
I'll doing a quick recap. Before I get started though, I just kind of wanted to say that where we're at in this process is it's been at least a year plus a long effort to get to where we're at today with this feasibility study. And while there is a staff recommendation and there is a preferred alternative from the HLB AC, we do plan to draft language to go to the HLB work plan work session that's happening next week. And then that language would take into account what we've heard along the way and what we're going to hear today to propose language for the industrial park in the 2025 HLB work plan, which will then be available for the public review draft in early December with likely public hearing date in February. So we're not at a place where we're at a strong decision point or a strong preferred alternative. We are, at one spot along the path of hearing from the community and making a recommendation in the work plan. So thank you, Kyle, for having this presentation already presented. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. As we mentioned at the quarterly meeting and at the HLBAC meeting, we did receive an appraisal. The HLBAC recommended 3 different scenarios to complete an appraisal for. And so we got those back, and that's what we presented at the recent round of meetings. And our goal today is to listen to what GBOS thoughts, what you're hearing from the community, so that we can take that into account as we draft language for the 2025 work plan. We tried to take into account as much pieces of data as we could as we put together information for this. We did ask GBOS for input on these criteria, also HLBAC back in April, I believe, of 2024, which informed the analysis process. Go ahead and go to the next thing. We started work on identifying the need for a feasibility study in 2023. The language was modified slightly and reapproved in the 2024 work plan, which had identified 4 different options to evaluate in the feasibility study. Disposing of the property as is, a disposal with platting of reconfigured lots, disposal of a portion of the previously approved plat, so just doing the next phase of a 3-phase. And then the 4th option was looking at completing the entirety of the approved preliminary plat with phases 2 and phases 3. So like I mentioned in April, when we talked to HLBAC, they did not ask us to move forward with an appraisal of just phase 2. So we did not get an appraisal amount for that. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Okay, option 1 would be disposing of the entirety of what's left of the industrial park. A sub-option of that would be to retain the areas in red, basically, or the area, the most inner red out, which would include the streams, the stream setbacks, the trails, all of that. Retain that in HLB inventory, and then sell the rest, which would make up, generally speaking, phases 2 and 3 of the industrial park. This option has pros and cons. It is not an option that we're suggesting that we move forward with. One of the reasons is that we feel that disposing of the entirety would not adequately take into account the community's needs for that area, and having it all in the private sector would leave the municipality and the Girdwood community very limited influence in what a future of the industrial park would look like. So we're not proposing this option. If you want to go to the next slide, Kyle. This is a breakdown of what we anticipate construction costs to be, which obviously we wouldn't be doing any construction here. How much acreage of usable land there is, the lots created, the anticipated income to HLB fund, basically what the appraisal amount is in this case. If we were to keep the area that's highly inundated with streams, floodplain, easements, that value of that land was estimated in the appraisal to be $252,000. Just very quickly, the maps going from the upper left, that's just an aerial imagery with the lot lines, the polygons with the green, those are mapped wetland areas. The red corridors represent easements of various kinds. And then the last map in that would be what the zoning is for those areas. Just a quick orientation there. I go to option 2. Option 2 is the staff preferred alternative. It is what HLBAC is recommending at this point as well. There are a lot of positives to this, and I think it also opens up some flexibility into the future as well. But this particular configuration would maximize the already somewhat developed lots, and it would have the least amount of infrastructure costs. So it's more financially feasible with the resources that we have currently, and it would accommodate for all of the current uses in the industrial park and also leave some room for expansion. I see that there is a hand up.
Yeah, Kelly, do you have a
Yeah, I
question?
just had a quick, yeah, I do. I just wonder if within this option, it would exist an option to further subdivide those lots. So there would be more lots of smaller size. So potentially more businesses could become owners. I mean, does that exist as an option within this option?
Yes and no. So generally, no, it doesn't. However, for the largest lot with kind of the panhandle, there is potential in that one for some further development. What's limiting is each lot needs to have a certain amount of frontage on the the cul-de-sac.
Okay, so that's okay. So that's why those two big ones are really big, is because they just each have a sliver of cul-de-sac.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here's a breakdown of the value of each of those tracks. The anticipated construction costs is just under 200,000. That would be improving, making the roundabout I keep saying roundabout, making the cul-de-sac a permanent cul-de-sac, but then we'd also have to extend utilities to go the rest of the way, because currently they stop midway or close to midway on lot 5 in phase 1. So we would have some costs associated with that. So if all of the lots were sold, the estimated revenue to HLB would be, including the cost, like minus the costs associated with the construction, would be a little over $1 million. What we're calling Tract A, that is the lot that is being used by the service area. The fair market value for that lot is $327,000. I think that there is conversation around what would that exchange be when platting action was done. So there's a potential that revenue to HLB would be different based on what that land exchange would look like for that continued use. There's a lot of benefits in this design. Partly, it's quite a bit easier to implement. We would be doing a platting action. The infrastructure improvements would be minimal. But what we are talking about with regard to Tract C is the ability to have a space that could potentially be a corridor for a public use easement or potentially platted right away in the future. And so it's largely in the location of what the 2014 approved preliminary plat is. So we anticipate that that would be a reasonable location for a road if we were to ever need that. Also, that driveway access could potentially open up smaller areas within Tract C for multiple permittees if it remained in HLB inventory. So basically the let me just say this one thing and I'll let you ask your question. The option 2, what we're seeing from our perspective, from staff perspective, is that this meets a lot of the community need by platting out areas that are currently being used. And it also does not have a huge impact to the HLB fund. And it allows for the option in the future to do more in the industrial park if that were to become a need. Happy to answer questions.
Yeah, Kelly, if you have
Yeah.
a question, what I'd like to do is, as well as just, if you, as soon as you finish the question, Kelly, and they've got an answer, we move through to option 3 and then actually have a full discussion because that's the main purpose of the meeting. So Kelly, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and I definitely don't want to stop you from speaking. So just to clarify, if you did choose the option to put the road through C, that allows future further expansion. So it's like, this isn't the end of the story. Did I hear that right?
This does not have to be the end of the story. It doesn't automatically, put a to be continued. It could be the end of the story, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it preserves the option. So if there is a future need, it could be met by integrating that into the plan.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, if we want to move to option 4. Thank you. So option 4 would be the complete build out. This would be what was a preliminarily approved in 2014. It's the combination of phases 2 and phases 3. This would create 17 new lots. It would also require a considerable length of right-of-way, also the considerable length of sewer infrastructure, and that would trigger the need for a sewer lift station. So if you want to go to that next slide for me, a rezone would be required. Obviously, there's areas that haven't been clear cut and filled. But then when we look at the anticipated construction costs, they are high, especially when you look at the appraisal amount. And so this particular configuration would result in about $1 million loss to the HLB fund. And a sort of an outstanding question is the community wanting these smaller lots? I think that when we did phase 1, the folks who are in phase 1 now, some of them have multiple lots. And I think that there's a lot of interest in having, it was very difficult to get them into a platted area. And a chief complaint I heard during that planning process was that they wanted more space, they wanted larger lots. And so that's a, excuse me, a consideration. So there's several reasons why option 4 isn't rising to the top from a staff perspective. And I'll leave it at that. I'm not sure if there's more to the presentation. I feel like it was mostly just next steps, but I guess I included we did a breakdown of what all those costs would be. We worked with our private development, AWW, and made sure that we were incorporating today's costs for those infrastructure costs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nicole. How confident are you about those costs?
I would say I'm highly confident.
Thank you. I will open up to the rest of the board. Kelly or Jen, Kelly, go ahead.
Just a question. just in the realm of possibility, because I just like to understand where the fixed points are and where there's openness. Um, is there an option that's a hybrid of the last two? So I guess that's option 2 and option 4, where you would kind of extend the road through tract C, but not go all the way. So actually do that future establishment, and then that would be more frontage. So there could be smaller lots and more of them if that's what was of interest. Or is there something that would prevent that kind of combined option?
Yeah, so that what you're describing is basically option 3, which we did not pursue. The reason we didn't pursue that is because any further development past that cul-de-sac would trigger the need for that lift station. And
Okay.
that lift station is $1 million on its own. And so if we
Mhm.
were to build that version and stop after those first 6 lots there, we'd still need another lift station at the very end of that cul-de-sac. So it increases the value, or increases the construction costs, and it doesn't give us more developable land.
Yeah, no, that's spectacular. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Kelly. Jennifer, do you have any comments? If not, I will make some.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to just a couple of initial thoughts, and then I'm going to open up to the room as well to get wider feedback. How can I say this? One of the reasons we're in this space, we're in this place now, is I would probably, in retrospect, maybe at the time, it was also clear, there was kind of a lot of short-termism, I think, in some of the earlier development. So there was an opportunity to take funding, which was available, I think, through the AWU purchase. There was a need for AWU to purchase their lot fairly quickly. And we ended up with a solution that really, in retrospect, wasn't a great solution. Although it did push us further. I fear that we may make the same decision here, or HLB may make the same decision. And what I'm not hearing is I'm hearing discussions about, with the impact to the fund and the impact to, perhaps some of the present users, but I'm not hearing much about how important this is to the economic development of the community and how much of an investment this is into our economic basis. So I think I understand why there's sort of short and medium term concerns are at the fore, but I think we have to think about the longer term benefits as well. And definitely we as a board should be thinking about that, even if HLB aren't, or at least are putting it at the top of their list. So I'm not sure. I mean, I was actually a fan of looking at option 3, but I understand why that was dropped. And it's good to get to hear that again from Unico. So, my initial thought is if we care about long-term future viability, then 4 or a variation on it may be the better path. But I'm interested in listening to everybody's view on this before I go any further. I'm definitely not at a point where I've made a decision. Okay, Kelly?
Yeah, I just building on your comment, which I agree with, about the importance to the economic development. I think implicit in that importance is maintaining existing businesses. And so I know this is all about the development, but I think it should be put on the table as well to give priority to the businesses that are there to have kind of first right of refusal for whatever we do, especially if it is option 2, because we wouldn't want external people to come out and buck existing businesses that are contributing to the community and have a presence there. So I don't know when and how that gets captured, but I wanted to put it on the table.
I can
Thank
help
you.
tell the story of what happened in phase 1, if that would be helpful.
No.
Yeah. Or I don't know if it's relevant. Yes. If not, no worries.
I mean, can I just comment here? It would be helpful, but perhaps not right now. I know I probably mischaracterized it, and I apologize for that. I'm looking back at it now with hindsight. So if I did mischaracterize, I apologize. I know you were very involved in that process.
Just to clarify, I didn't think that you mischaracterized it. I was going to talk to the first right of refusal and how we accommodated existing users in phase 1. But if that can wait for another day, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's fairly well.
And I would say I would be curious in hearing that if you intended to replicate that in phase 2. So I guess to the extent it's relevant to how it would be done now, yes. If you're proposing to do it differently now, then understanding what you propose would be helpful.
I think at this point, we don't have
Go
a
ahead.
proposal, but what I can say is that what happened in phase one was the concerns that you raised were of high interest. And doing that process did require a waiving of code because everything that HLB does needs to be competitive, especially when we're doing for-profit entities. And so that code was supported through the HLBAC, I believe GBOS as well, and the Anchorage Assembly. And so we didn't do an open competitive process for those first 5 lots. They were within the existing leasehold permittees that became leaseholders who got a right of first refusal in their leases.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
and I just understand that the leases don't have that right of first refusal anymore. And so the concern
there's no
was that the
leases
sales
in-
wouldn't either, or the permits don't.
Correct. The permits don't. They haven't gone through any sort of public process. So yeah, they don't. They're very short-term permits.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is open up to comments from the room. I'm not able to see the whole of the room, so Kyle, if you can move the camera over a little bit to the audience. Thank you. And if you can help me, Kyle, as well, in terms of recognizing people who've got their hands up. I'm not able to see it that clearly. I think I see Christina in the front row, just with her hand up. Yep. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Kyle, would you do me a favor and go back to the second slide, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Christina Hendrickson, one more up. It was the criteria, please. The criteria that was considered at the beginning. Thank you. Through the chair, who I've heard through the presentation, the Girdwood Board of Supervisors provided input on what should be the criteria for analysis. I don't see community here. I don't see economic impacts here. As such, when I hear that the staff supports the easier and more cost-effective disposal solution, it shortchanges the need for supporting the community as it is now. Phase one was years ago. Our community has changed quite significantly, and we have some additional pressures coming in, especially if we were to revert back to a competitive lease option or competitive disposal option. I encourage the staff and Girdwood Board of Supervisors to better engage the community. Many of what I've heard today was that options were dismissed from further analysis because of community uses and community needs. As a business owner that has had the privilege to work in the Girdwood Industrial Park for several years and build a sustaining business that employs local persons, I have not been contacted, received a survey. The one meeting that was supposed to have been hosted last summer was misadvertised on a different day with the promise to make it up, never got made up. There's a lot more that should happen to further engage us prior to a public hearing for the 2025 work plan in February. And with 2 holiday seasons upon us and the kickoff of what is everybody's ski season, it's going to be really hard to pull us all around together to do that. I do understand the limitations of current funding. I definitely understand the limitations of easements and stream setbacks and some of the geospatial analysis that was done. I'm also one of the only people in this community who has done a long plat successfully. And I can honestly look at all of the numbers that private development put together and can tell you that they are off by hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can bring the receipts for the work that we did to our subdivision the past 2 summers that include all of those utilities, that road building. And then last but not least, I was under the impression that we were not considering any other actions until disposal, yet the staff has been accommodating to one developer in the community by accommodating laydown for disposal of material. We're going to have a lot more material disposed of as Alyeska's master plan moves forward, as Holton Hills moves forward, as all the other private development moves forward. The number of side dumps that have progressed along Alyeska Highway in the past 2 months will only increase, and the cost and the impact of the inability to dispose of local material locally to improve potentially into phases 2 and 3 of this industrial park will cost people more money and limit the ability for businesses to grow locally. I can go into significant more detail, but I'll refrain from that so as to allow other people to speak. I offer the option to work with not only our chairs, but our land use supervisor to go into more detail to be effective in communicating the community and business needs prior to any other conversations and development of a staff report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the audience, either online or in the room?
Sure. I'm Sam Tiroli. Here in Girdwood, I'm a current permit holder in the industrial park. The biggest problem I see with option 2 is it just doesn't create enough spaces for local businesses. I think there's something like 7 permit holders down there. And I heard one of the areas is going to be passed along to Girdwood Valley service area. So that leaves 3 lots in a competitive market for, you know, it just greatly outnumbers the amount of current local businesses. And it opens it up to, you know, to the general public, and just fearful that we're going to be pushed out and not given a fair opportunity like everyone was in phase 1.
Thank you. Can I just ask which lot are you using now? Which area do you have permit for?
It's lot C, and I've been on, you know, I started off by renting from one of the storage lot. I rented a few spaces there, and then I got moved to D, and then I got moved to C, and I've just been pushed around all over the place in there. But I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to run my business in there, and I really can't do it without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, understood. I think that's it's very clear that this is such a limited resource.
Yeah.
Any industrial land. Can I, if you don't mind me asking both the, I think there's 2 businesses down there in the room represented.
Yes.
The comments we heard from HLB about the size of the lots in option 4 being too small, would you agree? I mean, what would, in an ideal case, what would you be looking for in terms of size of a lot? Is it sort of sub-acre, multiple acres?
Currently, this it's a little confusing. Like on lot C, there's a lot of acreage, but as far as usable acreage goes, you know, it looks like it's maybe 1/3 of the lot, and the cost to make the rest of it usable is just probably not worth it. So I'd say what's currently usable in lot C is probably enough for 1 business.
I think what Mike was wondering about is what area do you need to sustain your business? If you can help us
Sure.
understand that would be great.
Yeah, but your answer was useful, but I was actually asking what Tim said. Yes.
What is the size that I actually need to probably about what I'm currently using in C, which is sort of as it begins to open up wider.
Right.
So really the back part of it. And it's been tight and challenging.
Thank you.
Yep.
Would you like to recognize Ms. Wingard, or would you like me to answer the question, Mike?
Can you actually, if you don't mind, Jennifer, can I just get that the same answer from Christina and then come to you?
Absolutely. No, of course.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Jen. So my answer is two parts. We agree with everything that Sam said. We could definitely use more acreage. We could use more acreage that's better accessible, that's maintained, that potentially has utilities to it. That said, there are a lot of individuals who could benefit from the smaller ones. I say that with the hat on of having previously been in Tiffany's position. When working through these under the Bronson administration, I began conversations with people who were interested in setting up distilleries and setting up storage units and setting up bake shops or commercial kitchens. Those don't necessarily require this amount of acreage and can certainly be accommodated around the wetlands configuration that we're limited to. I will also say that the 0.3 acre that the former candle factory is on, that's on the market right now for $415,000, had multiple cash offers at over $500,000. And it still doesn't even have proper frontage because of its abutment next to the Noonan's property and the other residents on the other side. So commercial property, regardless of its size and configuration, is very valuable, and we will need it in big lots and small lots. We need something more than what this option 2 limits us in our community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to thank Christina for her comments right off the bat, but also I heard you specifically mention about land use supervisor. And I just want to make sure you know, Christina, I'm happy to talk to you at any point and actually have a lot of questions, follow-up questions about your statement. So please, let's manage to get in touch. But I do have some specific questions about for our business owners in the room about, I don't know any other way to say this besides that any of these options are going to change the economics, basically the bottom line of any business operating there currently, I think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at these numbers and Christina, if I'm understanding you correctly, you think that they're possibly wrong about the retail value on these lots, but either way, you're looking at a much higher loan payment. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a much higher loan payment than what the current permittees are paying. Am I right about that? And do you feel like the demand that you've seen for the industrial park lots takes what I see as a much higher bottom line? Do you think they take that into account?
I can speak to that. Let me unpack. There were several questions in there, Jen. First off, yes, there's no way my business can afford a $250,000 loan payment right now for a piece of land that has wetlands on it. Moreover, not being able to make any improvements on that land because of the steep permit cost that we would incur to make the land usable in the configuration that best benefits our business would exceed almost $500,000 based on the numbers that we have incurred in developing our half-acre parcel in the street that we did on the past 2 years. I'll defer to Sam to see if he has a different business outlook for those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's only, a couple that I'd consider reasonable, if that, just because of all the improvements that still need to happen. All the material is pretty poor. When I come back to my equipment in the spring, it's sunken in the ground.
So bad.
So it's gonna cost a lot. If people think that they're gonna build shops or whatever, it's gonna take a lot of money to do that, and its best use is kind of just what's already happening, is just using it as it is. And I see some of them, some of the ones with like lot C where we currently are is appraised the highest, but it has the least amount of usable space. And the one with the most usable space, D, is priced the lowest. And I don't really understand the valuation. And I'm sure that you guys are well aware of, you know, the cost to fill the wetlands area to make it usable.
Well, to that end, I also want to point out how D was further developed, and I really encourage, we should all do one big field trip down there so you can see how the mismanagement has really impacted our ability to do business smoothly. But the D was raised thanks to material that came from the Department of Transportation when they redid the airport. And the buildup of that pad, one of the reasons that the former leaseholder, James Glover, never moved on it was because his intention was to develop a greenhouse there. And he couldn't further stabilize because the silt material that was placed there wasn't going to be able to withstand the improvements he needed to make. And even to that end, the big storm that washed out Rouen and the culvert in October of 2021, had we as permit holders who are on the edge of C and D there, not armored the upslope with a bunch of cottonwood rounds, we would have come back to all of our equipment completely inundated or unusable because of how silty and fluid that property is. And to say that that's the best one and yet it's still priced the lowest is laughable to us that know that land back and forth and see it move throughout the year. I know it says 99587 on it, but it's not worth that much.
Thank you. I see the price on this. Was there an estimate of retail value for option 4 for the lots?
Yes.
Right. I know they weren't individually labeled.
They,
like
not
you see
on
them
our
this, but-
presentation,
Right.
but yes, we have individual prices for every one of those.
Okay. Right.
The appraisal is really complicated, and we actually had a follow-up meeting with the appraiser to have him walk us through it because it was the most complicated appraisal I think we've ever received. And so we decided for this presentation to keep it
Understood.
simple. So we just gave the aggregate, but even the aggregate value, there was 2 values because they weren't even sure. Nicole, what was that called? The there was they gave
How
us,
can you move to the other slide that shows the price?
yeah, that one.
Yeah. The,
Oh no, the I'm sorry, the
yeah, that
option
one's good
4.
too.
And then the next slide for option 4. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so there's the gross aggregate retail value and then the prospective market value at completion. And those numbers are considerably different. And this is kind of what we went back to them and asked further questions about. But basically the gross aggregate retail value is if we were able to sell each lot at its, I'm going to say best value, but that's not the right term. What they say is the prospective market value is selling, inundating the market with, and inundating is probably not the right word either, but providing 17 lots, industrial lots all at once, results in doing, I don't really have good language for this because I'm not an appraiser,
Yeah.
but
If I could rephrase it,
ultimately
would it
you
be
still
right?
have less.
Would it be right to think that the that higher number is if you basically have 15 or 16 people competing for each lot, gradually decreasing?
Sure.
Yeah. So the right way to think about this is, if we divide that number by 17, that would be the average lot price.
They gave us price per square foot, so
Okay.
depending on the size of the lot, but
Yeah,
yes, I mean,
okay.
it was calculated price per square foot, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure.
Thank you.
And yeah, they had some concerns about the actual, how quickly they would actually be sold.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
I got Christina in the room, and then I got Tim.
thank you. Christina first, then Tim.
Thank you. When I would remind the staff that the point of the phases 1 and the phases 2 were specifically to offset that type of competition. We didn't want the lots to languish. At the same time, 3 years ago, completely different market for phases 1 and phases 2, because we were looking at no Holton Hills and no Alyeska master plan. With the rooftops planned, we need to think long-term economic viability of the retail that's going to be required. And I know there's a bunch of retail planned for Up Valley, Alyeska, but that has a different lens than the hardware stores or the Three Bears or the storage units or the distillery that could be featured in the Girdwood Industrial Park and would lend to further economic long-term viability as opposed to the easier, more cost-effective disposal of option 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim.
Thanks. Tim Sharnan, HLB Commissioner. This is a follow-up to Kelly's question earlier, and it has to do with option 2. And Nicole, you mentioned you've heard now from a couple of these public meetings some concern about some of the folks who are currently using C might get squeezed out if that were to be sold as one lot. But I also heard you say that there's an option for future development that runs through C, either for future development or managing in a different way. Could you go into detail a little bit more on that so we understand that better?
Yeah, so what I'm talking about when we're saying that we could have the option for further in the future is, hey, we can get these 4 tracks platted, on the short-term horizon, but retain the ability to, at some point in the future, build a road through track C. So we'd still have all those same infrastructure costs, and you could argue that they'll be considerably more because we'd have, economic change between now and whenever we would do that further development. So basically we'd do option 4 later, by building a road through that corridor on track C.
Okay, so you're saying track C would retain an easement, a public easement for a road, but it would still be the same size.
At this point, yes, but in the future, if a road was built down that, then you could look at further subdividing track C.
How could you do that if lot C were sold as a lot? You would only be able to do that if you didn't convey it, right? Because you couldn't subdivide somebody's private property if it were sold.
Yeah, under that scenario, we'd be retaining tract C, and we would continue to issue land use permits for portions of tract C and retain that for future development past this version of the platting.
Okay,
Is that?
and then
I'm sorry.
excuse me, just to follow up on that, Nicole, would there be any concern that you're losing by not doing that now, not building that road now and maybe not making those lot Cs smaller? Is there a concern that there'd be less value out there that in the future, you wouldn't be able to build that road out there because for a couple more small lots past parcels B and C, there's just no more remaining value for lift stations and roads.
I'm sorry, could you restate the question? I'm not sure I followed you.
Sure. If you in a future option that built a road through C and had a few more small lots, is there a concern that there would be enough value to do that?
I don't think that there would be, and there's not now. I mean, there'd be a loss doing option 4 at these prices. And if Christina is accurate, and they're even considerably more than what we've estimated them at, that's even a bigger difference between what the value of the land is at fair market value and what the infrastructure costs would be today.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm aware that I think we have a hard limit of 2:30. So what I want to do is make one comment myself, editorializing, and then we'll move the meeting along. So I think that even the language here, there's this, sensing this kind of mismatch for a lot of the community talking about investment and economic development. And what we're hearing from HLB staff is kind of losses and profit. And there's this different viewpoint, I think, and I can see why that is the case. But I think, we as a community definitely need to keep our eye on both short-term issues, medium-term issues, but also longer-term issues. And I would definitely encourage HLB to do the same. Or perhaps we can explore other ways of moving the project forwards. As you know, we've been discussing, how land management can occur and things like this. So there may be other options, but this is not the time to discuss those in detail, just to be aware that there are potentially other paths forward. Can you just say something, Nicole, about timescale? So if there was a decision to go ahead with option 4, option 2, or whatever, in the relatively near future, how long would we be talking about until, conveyance? Is this a 2-year project, a 6-year project?
I think it would depend on what option that we were moving forward with. I think that if we were to move forward with option 2, we would start platting in 2025. If we were to move forward with option 4, I don't know what the time frame for that would be. I don't think HLB has the funding in its bank to start that construction.
Yeah, so that's a funding question rather than a timescale question. Got it. Thank you.
Right.
Are there any other questions from the board? Not seeing any. We're obviously just starting this conversation. Hopefully you, HLB staff, got a sense of where we are. We're not making decisions today, but I think the, where the board is probably becoming clearer. I think our follow-up actions are we're going to, we may provide something formally. Is the HLB discussion this month or next month?
We're having a work plan work session next week.
Yep.
But that's not the public. I mean,
Yes.
we'll be releasing public hearing draft next month.
Right. So we will obviously have comments on the public hearing on the plan.
Public comment draft.
Yeah. So we'll definitely take action by then. But I think in the meantime, we will probably try and get more feedback from the community. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mike. This isn't a question, but I did want to thank HLB that at least I very much appreciate we're not battling over option 1. And I do appreciate what I think there is some attention being paid here to community needs and interests, even if some things weren't specifically laid out on the criteria. And I very much appreciate the way that you're trying to work with the community. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Jennifer. Always the optimist. Okay, we're approaching past. I know we had public comment listed on the agenda. I don't think typically we do public comment at a work session, but if there is any members of the public who wish to make comments, now is the time to do so. I'm not seeing any or hearing any. Again, I'd like to thank HLB very much for coming along and joining us in this. Really appreciate the information and the engagement, and I look forward to more of that. Thank you. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.